Hi guys, welcome back, and in this video we're going to do something a little bit different. Lots of you have been requesting gear videos, pedal settings, amp settings, all that sort of stuff. So here's what we're going to do. I've borrowed a load of pedals from a friend of mine, thank you James, and some of my own pedals, and we are going to run through how you can get as close as possible to Stone's sound on the 10 album. It's impossible to do a how do you get Stone's tone or how do you get Mike's tone video, because to be perfectly honest they switch up equipment so much between albums that you really want a kind of album sound. So, sometimes different tunes they've used different pedals and various bits and pieces. You know, Mike and Stone do love their gear, don't we all? As I say, predominantly we're going to be looking at the sound on the 10 album, and I'm going to use Alive as a reference point because that is pretty much the same as Stone's tone throughout that album. So, in terms of equipment, I'm using my cheapest guitar. It is a Japanese-made Edwards Les Paul copy, I guess. It is pretty standard apart from the pickups. I think there's a bare knuckle mule possibly in the bridge pickup. Not sure. Used to belong to AC/DC and Brian May's Guitar Tech, funnily enough. Unfortunately he passed away and I picked this up at an auction. But it's a great little guitar and brilliant value for the money. So if you can get one, get it. The actual model is I think it's a Jimmy Page Les Paul model. So that's the guitar I'm going to play it with. All you need to worry about is having humbuckers. So if you've got a humbucker there, job done. Doesn't really matter what shape the guitar is, as long as you've got a humbucker. We're going to be using the bridge pickup to get this tone. Over to amp. So the amp is my trusty Victory V40, otherwise known as the Countess. They're made in the UK. Brilliant little amps, and they take pedals incredibly well, and they are loud as well. I've never had this above half in any venue. In terms of settings on the amp and settings on my pedal, you probably don't need to worry too much about exactly what they are. I mean, the fact that it's being recorded into a USB mic means that how it sounds in the room isn't going to be how you hear it out there. It's not far off, but it's not going to be the same, so I wouldn't worry about the little details. Also, I have small children who love just changing these and changing my foot pedals at will. So I think the most important thing is to be able to learn how to dial in that tone that you want, not to worry about the specifics. So here's the clean sound. Okay, it's pretty basic. Again, I'm using 10 as the reference point. Now, here's what we're going through first. I'm going to show you literally how I get the tone, and then we're going to work back. So I'm not going to go through a million iterations and then have you wait until the end of the video to go, it's this one. But the SL Drive. I use the Exotic SL Drive. It is a beast of a pedal. And I'll play through a couple of other ones side by side so you can see the difference. But this is my 10 tone. There's also a bit of reverb on the amp, but not much. Okay, so that's pretty much my 10 sound. Now, what we're going to try now is to try and emulate that with some other pedals. So, first off, a little bit of information about what I know about how the album was recorded. They used to use Marshall amps, I believe, with Tube Screamer pedal. Now, I know Stone, I think, has some other pedal. I think it was an Ibanez SD, something like that, Sonic Distortion or something like that pedal, which I believe is a bit sort of fizzy sounding, but they would be using the tube screamer to kind of overdrive their amp. The SL Drive is essentially a Marshall in a box. So what I'm going to do is I've got a Tumnus going into that, which we'll see how that sounds. So if you hear the difference between the clean and with the Tumnus on, is this. Okay, so a little bit of dirt there. Also adds a little bit of bass. Now let's hear that with the SL Drive. So SL Drive on its own. Tumnus with the SL Drive. Without the Tumnus. Just brilliant. Love those pedals. The Tumnus fattens up that sound considerably. So often when I'm playing live, it sounds great at the bedroom level, but when I'm playing live with the rest of the band, I often like to touch down the SL Drive in terms of the distortion, and then bang on the Tumnus as well. It just fattens up the sound and cuts through nicely. Anyway, let's have a listen to some other options. The SL Drive and the Tumnus are not cheap. I don't know how much they are. SL Drive is about 100 quid. Tumnus is about 150, I think. They're not cheap. But I've got some cheaper pedals. So we'll try and see if we can emulate the sound with these cheaper pedals. Let's go cheapest pedal that we have, which is the TC Electronic Mojo Mojo. Again, that's the clean sound. And here's the Mojo Mojo. Now to my ears that doesn't sound bad at all, but it's a bit thinner than the SL Drive. So let's compare this SL Drive. Meaty compared to so not as harmonically rich at all compared to the SL Drive, and it feels like there's lacking something in the middle there. So for me it's not too beefy, but we've got some similar Tumnus type pedals. So we've got an Archer, J-Rocket Archer, and an Electro Harmonic Soul Food. So let's go for the Soul Food. That again I think is about 50 quid. I think the Mojo Mojo pedal's about the same sort of price. So almost a third of the expensive ones that I tend to favour. Let's try those two together. So again, Mojo Mojo on its own. Now with the Soul Food added. Now compare that to the SL Drive. Again. That is not far off to my ears. I hope it's recording as it sounds in the room. I think the Mojo Mojo won't get you there on its own. I think you're going to need the something like the Soul Food to just bump it up a bit. And I must say, I don't know what amp you're going to be using. This is a valve amp, so obviously as I'm driving this harder, we're going to be getting some of the distortion from this bad boy. If just going by the pedals, I'd say those two are pretty close. Right, next we're going to have a look at the R78 Distortion. Again, not a hugely expensive pedal. Let's give that a go. Sounds pretty cool. Bit more trebly, I think, than the SL Drive. Okay, so SL Drive. MXR. Very different pedal. It's a lot more Guns N' Roses sounding, I think. Let's try the MXR with the Soul Food, see what happens. Not bad. Let's try the Tumnus with the MXR. Almost getting into kind of fixer territory there. If I take the distortion down on the MXR, yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's more slash than Pearl Jam, I think. So hopefully the light hasn't changed too much. I had to change the batteries in one of the LEDs. Okay, so next up we have the Archer, Tumnus, DOD, Overdrive, the Hotcake, the OCD, and the SL Drive. I thought it'd be interesting to see if you can get one of these transparent overdrive types to sound a little bit like the 10-tone. The 10-tone. Stone's 10-tone. Let's give it a razz. Okay, so that's the clean tone. The Hotcake first, I think. Ooh, let's try that one. Quite bassy, that one. Compare that to the SL Drive. And the OCD. The OCD and the SL Drive aren't too far apart. Obviously less distortion on the OCD. It is in low power mode. Let me turn up the drive a bit more on that, and then we'll try high power. Compare that to the Hotcake. Hotcake sounds a bit darker to me. Here's the OCD again. Let's compare the OCD to the SL Drive. OCD. You're almost there with the OCD, to be honest. The Hotcake sounds a bit too bassy for me. Let me put the OCD into high power and we'll see what that sounds like. So on the HP setting of the OCD, I've had to turn down the volume and the drive a little bit. That's the SL Drive. Here's the OCD. It's not far off. It's a little bit trebly compared to the SL Drive, I think, but it's pretty close. Let's try some of these clon types into these other pedals. Okay, so I'm going to try the Archer, which sounds like this. Compare that to the Tumnus. And the DOD Overdrive. Now that DOD sounds great. That's a really nice pedal. Archer into Hotcake. No. Archer into OCD. Yes. That sounds awesome. Let's just hear the SL drive on its own. Archer and OCD. That sounds lovely. And that is the OCD on the low pedal mode. I mean, the drive's about 2 o'clock on that. That is a very nice sound indeed. Okay, Tumnus into Hotcake. No, just sounds... Losing the clarity of the notes in that one. Sounds very muffled, and I've got the presence up quite high on that Hotcake as well. And I think with the Tumnus as well, it's quite bassy. And the treble's up quite high on that. Alright, let's try the DOD. In fact, let's try Tumnus into OCD, which is what I have on my board. That's lovely as well. Not as much distortion as the Archer. So Archer OCD. That's really good. Tumnus into OCD. Both of those sound awesome. Which you'd expect, those are expensive pedals. Again, let's compare that to the SL drive. In fact, no. Let's do the DOD Overdrive into the OCD. Pretty nice compared to the SL drive. DOD with SL drive. That sounds great too. So these pedals stack so well. I always set up the pedals so that the signal chain goes into the least distortion into the most distortion first, so you can stack them that way. And that sounds great. I think the Hotcake's probably out of the equation. The DOD one's quite nice, but I think Archer and the Tumnus, they've just got something a little bit about them. Let's try the DOD into the SL drive's nice. Very metally. Tumnus. Archer. Yeah, they all sound great. So there's a few ways to get there. I think we came pretty close to the Soul Food and the Mojo Mojo, but the SL drive with either the Tumnus or the Archer before it, or the OCD with the Tumnus or the Archer before it, is easily my favourite sound. And I think it nails that. I think the OCD is very good for so the OCD and the Tumnus, once this bad boy is really cranked, sounds a lot like Stone's live tone. So it's not so similar to the 10 tone. It's a lot more trebly, presency, but that's what I hear from his live recording. So I'll probably do another little session on his live tone. But hopefully that was pretty interesting for you. You got to have a look at some shiny pedals as well, which we all like. So anyway, let's have another listen to the SL drive, with the Tumnus and then with the Archer added to it. So SL Drive on its own. Great. Tumnus into that. Archer into the SL Drive. Hopefully that was sufficient for you to figure out how to get your own 10 sound with whatever pedals you happen to have lying around. Anyway, feel free to ping me questions and suggestions. As always, like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. But please do, I really do appreciate it. So that's it for now. Until next time. Cheers, bye-bye.